to the story about a woman in California who just gave birth to octuplets. We know that they are not her first children. The woman actually had 6 other children already, and that is raising ethical questions about her latest pregnancy. Margaret Somerville is the founding director of the McGill Center for Medicine, Ethics, and Law, and she joins us from Montreal. Ms. Somerville, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
We don't know for sure because little information has been released on this case, but we believe the woman likely took hormone injections to stimulate her ovaries so she could have a child. How risky is this?
Well, that can result in multiple births, but, you know, just to come to the ethics, there's a saying in ethics, it sounds trite, but it's extremely important and true, that good facts are essential for good ethics. And I've read 2 stories on this case. One of them is that possibly she had ovarian stimulation through some sort of fertility drug, and it seems as though that story says she conceived naturally. The other story says that, in fact, the ova were collected, were fertilized in vitro, that is outside her body, and the embryos were then replaced. And the ethics are somewhat different depending on which of those set of facts is the correct one.
Okay, so lay that out. I mean, it's either hormones to stimulate the ovaries, which I understand then you still need very close monitoring and supervision so that you can deal with, you know, what may be multiple births if that's what, in fact, you are aiming to get.
Yes, well, I mean, the first issue that arises there is once you've got medicine involved, what you've done is you've got a societal institution involved, and that changes the ethics, because this is not just a natural conception, where, in my view, we should never interfere with that natural conception. This is where society is using its resources to help her to become pregnant. So that means we have to look at the ethics of what society is doing, the ethics of what the doctor is doing, because the doctor's acting, in a way, partly on behalf of society. So with someone who has 6 children, should we be taking this risk by giving her these injections? And then if she does have multiple ovulation and gets pregnant naturally after that, then there's a lot of very difficult ethical questions come up. Some people believe in what they call selective reduction. That is, they just choose some of the babies that are in utero and kill them. I personally don't agree with that. And I do know of other pregnancies where the women had conceived in utero, did have a very large number of children conceived, and they also rejected having selective reduction because they had objections to intentionally killing those unborn babies. If, on the other hand, the eggs were collected, then fertilized in vitro, that is, in a test tube or a petri dish, first of all, you've got the ethical question about how many is it ethical to fertilize, because you're making a new human life, an embryo, and once you've got over how many you think it's ethical to fertilize, you have to ask how many is it ethical to transfer to her uterus. Well, quite apart from the ethics, good medical practice at the moment says for a woman her age, a maximum of 2, and certainly no more than 3, and some of the literature is saying it should only be 1. So there's some problem there about what went on, if that's the way that it happened. Also, you know, it's somewhat puzzling about why would she want to have, assuming there was some way in which she knew she was having these multiple children, why would she want to do that when she's already got 6 children?
Right, and let me ask you, how much of a responsibility is it to these clinics then to ask the questions, are you financially able to take care of these children? Do you have support? You know, all the pertinent questions that even when, you know, a woman prepares to get pregnant naturally is asked, one would assume, by her family doctor or by other medical professionals. Is there something that's incumbent for those businesses, because some of those are businesses, to ask those questions and to react accordingly?
Well, I don't think it's right to ask them if what you're doing is conceiving naturally. That's very much going back to some of the most horrible things that have happened, that, you know, if you're not a fit person, you know, we'll practice eugenics, we'll make sure
you but you want the woman to have support, right? Because it's not easy. It's not easy having a newborn baby.
I know, but there's a big difference between if she's conceiving naturally, when I don't think we've got any right to ask those questions, and where she wants to use society's resources in order to get pregnant, and we have to worry about the ethics of our society making available those resources. Now, whether those are appropriate questions is still a sensitive ethical issue, because some people say, well, that means that wealthy people can use this technology and poor ones can't.
Sure.
Also, in some countries, for example, in Australia, I don't know whether they've still got it, but at one point they had a law that before you could use in vitro fertilization, you had to have psychological counseling and a psychological assessment, and you had to wait for a year after you first applied to do this in order to get access to the technology.
Just quickly,
so that was an assessment delaying technique.
Just quickly, is there a possible case of malpractice in this case?
Yeah, there could be. Yeah, there could be, because if the doctor hasn't acted as a reasonably careful specialist in reproductive technology, he could be liable for medical negligence.
I'm sure we haven't heard the last of this story for sure.
I don't think so.
Margaret Somerville with the McGill Center for Medicine, Ethics and Law joining us. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.